I think it makes us realize that we are more alike than we are different. At a fundamental level, I think humans want a few things. I think they want to be seen. I think they want to be heard. I think they want to be listened to and loved.
Yeah.
And whenever someone goes up in front of other people and shares a point of their life that was very tough and difficult and hard, and they're vulnerable, which I know is a buzzword that's just thrown around a lot, but there's significance there. I think whenever someone goes up and does that, everybody else in the room can feel it and they can relate at some level.
In this episode, I interview Matt Worthington, co-founder of Riser, which is an events networking company here locally in Austin, Texas. And he works on throwing amazing, impactful, valuable events for creators, founders, entrepreneurs, really highly ambitious and driven people here locally in Austin. Matt shares some amazing insights and takeaway. I'm just really impressed with him, even, for being a young guy, and just how he thinks about being intentional with his thoughts, the language he uses, how he wants to show up each and every day to get the most out of life and to stop living in a way that puts his happiness out into the future. So check out the episode. Hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think.
Well, man, weather's great. Life is good.
That's incredible. How long are you down there for?
We're here for a week, so I have until Friday, just a few more days.
Wow.
You look good, man. It looks like you've been getting some sun.
Yeah.
Your hair is not falling out, which is...
For now.
Hey, enjoy it while you have it, right?
Yeah, I think it's in my genetic code that at some point it's likely going to come out, so might as well rock it. And last week was a little cloudy and rainy here in Austin, and so last 2 days have been nice and sunny. So yeah, dude, have gotten out. What are you guys doing down there?
My best friend Zach, his family owns a restaurant in Austin called Iron Cactus. It's right next to Comedy Mothership, if you're familiar with Joe Rogan's place.
Yeah.
And so they've done really well and decided to buy another property. And this is where they bought the second property. So they have a condo here on the beach. And they're the type of people that say, hey, anytime you want to come. Yeah. And a lot of times, you're like, all right, but actually, and they're like, no, actually, come anytime. So we're here for a week, working remote, getting sun, hanging out by the beach and eating good food. So can't complain, man. Life is good.
That is so nice. It's so amazing. I've been like crazy. I went to San Diego, went back home, see my parents for a week or so. But at the end of September, a really good buddy of mine is getting married in Kauai.
Amazing.
And
nice.
And they just bought their first house in Kauai. It's not a flipper, but it was, what do you call it? Like one that they just like basically had to scrape it and they're redoing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then they'll have it as live part-time and rent it out for part of the year. I think they're going to live full-time in San Francisco still.
Incredible.
But, yeah. And he's like, yo, dude, he's like, if you come out for the wedding, like you can stay there. And I'm like,
you're like, you don't have to tell me
twice.
Let's go,
dude.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Dude, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, brother. Super, super pumped. I think, as you can tell, I already hit record just in case, we drop any nuggets that come up. But, today, like what I'm doing a bunch of these today. So maybe that's where my head's at. My main mission with this, my goal with this is to just start having conversations around the intersection of well-being. And what's included in that for me, how I see it is, the physical side, but mental, emotional, spiritual side. And then how that intersects with business and following purpose, passion, making a difference, your mission, right? And I know you've got an amazing thing you're building, the mission that you have with Riser. And I'd love to hear if there's other stuff too, man, like by all means. And so I want to have people on that, nobody's perfect. The intention isn't to have people on that have figured it out, because none of us have figured it out, but more so just a chance for you to share your story too, talk a little bit about what you have going on, and then allow me to just be kind of a fan and, and dive in areas that I find to be potentially really impactful or just interesting, if nothing else.
That sounds like a plan. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, dude. So where I'd love to start, because I don't think I've ever actually heard this from you. I know when we've met, it's kind of been in just a couple random settings. I remember the first time we met at Barton Springs. I don't even think we got to chat too much. But dude, I would love to hear from you what you do. Like, who do you work with? When you're waking up every day, like, tell me what you're focused on right now.
Yeah, so my day-to-day is working in dental sales.
Okay.
So we're a one-stop shop. A dentist graduates from school. They come to me and my team, and we help them find their next space. We help them build out the space. We help them get the equipment they need, the technology they need, the software they need to get up and going. We help them with marketing, with supplies, with service. And then moving forward, we're their go-to for all those listed items.
Wow.
The passion project is Riser. So a little bit of ping pong between the two.
Yeah. Dude, tell me a little bit about Riser. Like, where are you at now with it? Why? Maybe let's start with why you started it and what Riser is first. And then I have just a lot I've actually been wanting to ask you anyway. So today's a perfect opportunity for that. But tell me about Riser.
So Riser is the self-proclaimed #1 networking company in Austin.
That's cool. Someone's got to claim it. I don't know any other ones.
And we throw events for business owners, entrepreneurs, young professionals, influencers, creators, next level thinkers. That is our community.
Yeah.
And we throw events quarterly, anywhere between 300 and 500 people with 30 plus vendors that help showcase their business, their service, what they have to offer to the rest of Austin. And then we do things differently. We have DJs, comedians, magicians, and speakers. We don't want it to be your top button suit and tie, name tag, champagne glass type of networking event. We want it to be fun. We want it to be hip. We want it to be show up as you are. As long as you're a good person, you're brilliant, you're thoughtful, you're kind, you'll fit right in.
Yeah.
So that is Riser in a nutshell. The origin story of that is I had graduated from college and I wanted to be around the movers and shakers in Austin, but I wasn't getting invited to those circles. So I figured I'd just start it myself. So I was like, how do I entice those people to get into a room?
Yeah.
What I did was I created a flyer in Canva. It was titled Austin's Most Successful Under 30, which I definitely wasn't at the time. I just started my first 9-to-5 job and, didn't have much money in the bank account, but I just felt like that would get the right people in the room. And sure enough, it attracted the right audience. We had 12 people at that first event, which was at the time titled The Magic of Giving, Austin's Most Successful Under 30.
Yeah.
And then after the second, third, and fourth one, the growth just was exponential. It went from 12 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 100. And then that's when I met Christian, who's my now business partner, and we turned it into what Riser is today. So yeah, just funny how I said Austin's most successful under 30 and I wasn't that at all, but it got the right people in the room.
I think it depends how you define successful.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
There's so much gray area with it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So what was that first event? And what I want to know is like how you took that from zero to something. I mean, you said you created a flyer. Right. But what else went into it? What did you guys do for the first event?
So it was at a neighborhood community center. It cost us $25 to rent out, or cost me $25 to rent out for 4 hours, which is so funny to look back on. And I bought all the food, I bought the drinks, and what I did to also incentivize people to show up was I made sure that we had a few speakers. A few of the people in Austin I knew that were starting businesses, trying to have impact, trying to make a difference in the community, and had them come up and speak and share a little bit about their story. And leading up to the event, having those speakers was almost a fail-safe for me, that if I had 4 speakers, at least I knew 4 people were going to show up. Yeah. And maybe one of them was just speaking to the other 3 speakers that were in there. But there weren't just the 4 speakers. There was 8 other people, right? Like whoop-de-doo. And they just talked a little bit about what they're trying to build and create. And I think the thing that kept me going and the thing that motivated me to have a second event was there's a kid by the name of Robbie Zudok who had started a clothing brand called Sunnyside. And his best friend had gotten into a terrible car accident, was in a coma for 4 or 5 weeks, and came out of it, was paralyzed, was never supposed to walk again, but over a course of a year, started walking, and not only walking, but surfing and wakeboarding and all these incredible things. So Robbie created this clothing brand kind of out of the hardship that he felt during that time. He was depressed. His best friend was in a coma. He felt like he should have been there at that time with him the night of the car accident, driving the vehicle versus the gentleman who was driving, who was intoxicated. And I think he was having trouble forgiving himself for that, letting Gavin, his friend, get into that vehicle, knowing that the guy that was driving was drunk. So he started this clothing brand to support mental health awareness. And he went up there and he talked about his business and the mission and the clothing brand and the reason and the why behind it. And the whole room was just so moved by it. I mean, just nearly tears in our eyes. Well, he brought a box of merch, and again, there was only 12 people there, but he sold out of everything that he brought. Every single person in that room bought a piece of clothing. And by the end of the evening, I think he had sold like $1,000 worth of stuff, which is pretty impressive. Like everybody bought over $100 worth of garments. And I remember talking to him about it afterwards, and he just gave me the biggest hug. And he said, you know, Matt, I hadn't sold a piece of clothing for months. And tonight I sold the rest of the stuff that I had. And it made me realize in that moment that we really can have impact when we bring good people together around a good mission and a good story. It can really make a difference. And that was the beginning of what is now a 3-year journey of throwing events with 400, 500 people and still trying to focus on the core mission of impacting the community and helping small businesses grow their success, whatever success looks like to them, right? But also just stay in the fight, just stay in the fight and believe in themselves.
Yeah, man, that's such an amazing story. That's so cool. Like, that's incredible. What do you think it is about a mission like that draws people in, and something that is, around mental well-being? And the reason I'm asking this is because there is still such a stigma to it, I think, at a societal level. But I see through, posting online, on LinkedIn every day about it, by doing the work I'm doing with my community, that even though there's a stigma, if you're in an environment and in a space where people are just talking about it, you see that people just get so drawn in and connected. And it tells me that something's going on, right? There's something much bigger at play, but being in that room and just being part of it, like, what's your take on it? What do you think it is?
I think it makes us realize that we are more alike than we are different. At a fundamental level, I think humans want a few things. I think they want to be seen. I think they want to be heard. I think they want to be listened to and loved.
Yeah.
And whenever someone goes up in front of other people and shares a point of their life that was very tough and difficult and hard, and they're vulnerable, which I know is a buzzword that's just thrown around a lot, but there's significance there. I think whenever someone goes up and does that, everybody else in the room can feel it and they can relate at some level.
Yeah.
All of our pain's relative. Somebody who stubs their toe can feel the same amount of pain as somebody else who loses someone that they love, right? It's relative. But at the end of the day, that pain is a universal feeling. And I think when we turn pain into purpose, it helps bring people together, and we can rally behind that because we know what it feels like to be sad, to be mad, to be angry, to be upset, to be depressed, maybe to be anxious.
Yeah.
And so, we rally behind people who go through things, in my mind, and there's beauty in that. And one of my favorite quotes that I'll end this tangent with is Shia LaBeouf says, "Don't waste your pain. It's useful paint." And I think that's beautiful. Is pain can be turned into art if we choose to channel it the right way.
Yeah. And it reminds me of what I just hear this. I'm reading a Tara Brach book, Radical Acceptance again. And I'm going to butcher the exact quote, but she says, and there's a part of it where it's like, allow this suffering to awaken compassion within me. And it's the same thing that Shia LaBeouf said. It's like, how can we lean into that pain, right? And see that, like, that is our path to the other side, right? To being more spiritually connected, more, in connection with the divine or whatever source universe that you want to call it. And I think there's something about, moving beyond the details of someone's story on an external level, right? And when you can start to relate with somebody based off, of course, the stories they share, but the feelings and the emotions, that you're able to like see in them and recognize and be like, oh shit, man. Like, yeah, I go through all that stuff. And I've been there. Like, I really feel like I can envision what it must be like to, feel the guilt or the shame of allowing your best friend to get into a car with somebody and then something happening to them. Yes. And like not knowing if they're going to live again, not knowing again if they're going to walk, not knowing just how life is going to be. And so I think there's so much power in that. What do you feel now with Riser? Like, what makes you feel inspired to keep doing the work that you're doing with that?
I think seeing the connections that are made at the events that turn into and blossom into meaningful relationships as the months and years go on. So many times in the journey of growing Riser, we've seen a lot that two random strangers bump into each other at a booth, or they have this magnetic draw to one another from across the room that just makes them decide to walk over to the other person that they catch eye contact with. And then that turns into either them dating on a romantic level, them starting a business together, them traveling the world together, or them just being best friends that go and have lunch twice a week at a local spot in Austin. And being able to create the space that allows people to make deep and meaningful connection is really special to us, because the goal from the onset of Riser was to bring together like-minded individuals around a common goal of X. And we had no idea of what X would be.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to create the space and let the guests define the outcome of the evening themselves. And to this day, we let X be defined by the guests who come to the events. And it's been very, very fun seeing how they decide to navigate the evening themselves with their own intention, their own drive, their own curiosity, and just let the evening flow naturally. So I guess to sum all that up, it's just the relationships that are made, and the friendships and the bonds that are forged in a short 3-4 hour event, which ends up having an impact on them for many years to come.
Yeah, amazing. What's your vision for it? Where do you guys want to take it?
There was a period of time where we wanted this to be the biggest thing in the world, where it's this huge, incredible, hard to miss, flashy networking company that is in every major city across the United States and potentially into Europe and Asia and South America, so on and so forth. And I think that was just, us being young and naive. And of course, that's still a direction we could go. But I think what we've pivoted to is really wanting to focus more on the place that makes us the most happy. And that's Austin. I'm from Austin. My business partner's from Austin. And we love this city, and we love the potential in this city, and we love the people in this city, and we love the opportunity that's continuing to move here to this city. And so I think instead of branching off into other markets and other major cities across the country, we want to focus on Austin and just and grow what we have here. So that could look like a 5,000 person conference rather than these 500 person networking events. That could look like potentially opening up our own space here in Austin and being able to throw events in tangent with other event companies that we feel we're very aligned with. Or that could be simply maybe having more events at the size that we have, but instead of doing them quarterly, it's monthly. So right now we are trying different things. We're doing brainstorming sessions and also allowing ourselves and giving ourselves permission to fail if we do try something and it doesn't work, right? So to answer your question, Austin is the vision and the future and the focus for Riser. What does that look like? I don't necessarily know right now, but that's part of the fun and that's part of the excitement.
Yeah, of course. Man, how hard that must be too. I mean, especially in the country we live in, with how everybody is always like more and more and more accumulate. You got to grow, man. Every single month, this next event has to be 20% bigger than your last event.
Yes.
How can it be bigger and better? And it can, and knowing that, experiencing that growing a coaching business and a community. And it's like, man, it can eat you alive. It can be really tough to stay centered, stay sane, stay in alignment with your own mission, your vision, like what fires you up, the things that are getting you out of bed, and not doing things because maybe you feel an urge just to grow it.
Yes.
Right. To grow it.
Yes. I was just say, I think an important point to add onto the first half of that is you mentioned, man, how difficult a thing that can be, and trying to stay grounded in all of that. And I think a way that I stay grounded, and something that I'll mention, is I've been doing a lot of research on the reticular activating system, right? Yeah. RAS. For those who aren't familiar with the reticular activating system, I'll use the analogy of the red car theory, right? If I asked you right now how many red cars you saw maybe yesterday on your way to the gym, you'd probably say, oh gosh, like, I don't know, maybe one or two. Like, can you remember seeing one or two? Like, maybe. But likely you don't remember, right? Yeah. And the reason is because you're not looking for it, right? Now, if I asked you to go to the gym today and look for red cars, maybe you'd see 7 or 8 because you're looking for it. I think it's very similar in life. And a good way to stay grounded is to look for the things that make us happy, that make us feel present, that make us feel very grateful. And so something that's helped me in this process of growing Riser is focusing on the things every day that make me feel good. And a way I do that is journaling. And there's something called the 5-minute journal. You can look it up online. I'm not an ambassador for it. I'm not getting any sort of affiliate link. It just had a great impact on my life. Yeah. And it runs you through a couple exercises in the morning where you talk about what you look forward to most during the day to come. And then at the very end of the day, looking back on the day, what did you appreciate the most? What made you the most happy? What are you most grateful for? What made you smile? And so you're focusing consistently on the good rather than the bad. And I think when you focus on the good, it brings more good and it helps you stay grounded.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It creates a filter, through which you're viewing life, and every single day. It's something I have when I start working with guys. The first things I have them do is a little journal. Yeah. And right out the gate, gratitude is also very buzzworthy right now. Yes. And buzzworthy. But it's just that it's shifting and super hard at first, right? It feels like a heavy lift. Whether it's like, I don't know what I'm excited about. I don't know what I'm looking forward to. I don't know what I'm grateful for. Yeah. And that is just that evidence that, hey, the grooves are pretty deep right now in how you've been thinking. And that's a sign that your mind has been looking at things totally in the other direction. And journaling and how you've described it is such an amazing way, is just to shift your gaze into an area where you're like, oh man, there actually is so much going on. It's one of the core things we struggle with as beings is we focus on what we don't have versus what we do when left on autopilot. And we got to really train ourselves to do that. So I love that. What do you think has been the hardest thing for you? You have a full-time job and you have almost a full-time side hustle, right? What's the hardest for you to make sure that you're staying centered, that you're showing up best for yourself, like that you're there and not completely burning the candle at both ends, not burning yourself out, not getting overwhelmed we talked a little bit earlier with just expectations and, growth and stuff. So I'm just curious for you, like what has been the biggest challenge or an ongoing challenge?
I think the biggest challenge and an ongoing challenge is something that dives into a Buddhist principle, which is attachment is the root to all suffering. And I think oftentimes in life, not just with Riser and with business, but it plays into that too, is this idea that there's a lot of expectations whether they be worldly expectations, societal expectations, or just our own standards and expectations that we place upon ourselves, which leads to a lot of pressure and weight on our shoulders. If I have this expectation that this next riser event needs to have, right, and be mindful of the word I'm using there, needs to have 700 people, needs to have 40 vendors, needs to make X amount of revenue and money in our pockets, then it places a weight on our shoulders that is unhealthy, one, but two, can really lead to deep-rooted disappointment if we don't achieve that set need. Now, this is similar with having this need or this desire or an attachment to a certain physique, a need or a desire or an attachment to an ex-girlfriend, to making X amount of money, right? And whenever we don't achieve said need, again, it leads to us feeling disappointed in ourselves, maybe hurts our ego, maybe hurts us in terms of not feeling like we're worthy or good enough. And so what I've really had to practice and try to remember is we don't need anything, and just reframing that a little bit into, well, I have the opportunity to have a better physique. I have the opportunity to make more money. I have the opportunity to have an event with 700 or 800 people this time rather than 500. It takes away the pressure, and there's not an attachment to it. There's not a need to accomplish X. And so just reminding myself of that is really important, because when I've had an attachment to a certain outcome and that outcome hasn't transpired or been the result, it's made me feel defeated. And so I guess the hardest thing to answer your question is removing any expectation and attachment to an outcome. And that's really helped relieve a lot of pressure and weight on my shoulders.
I'm curious on that. What is your process for doing that? And the reason I ask that is because I think people can hear that, don't attach to, no, I'm not attached to it. Or, I don't need this outcome. No, I get, like intellectually, right, we grasp the idea of non-attachment, right? Or not having this neediness energy is all, I'll call it, right? Yeah. In sales, it's the old commission breath. Right? You really need it. And I think what's challenging for a lot of people is because the mind can hear a concept and go, yeah, I get that. Let's check the box. But there's a whole different, I think a different way of approaching it for us to really embody it and for us to really live true to non-attachment, like when you work through it. So I'm just curious how, like, if you're aware of it and you're aware of the idea that, hey, this upcoming riser event, I don't want to be attached to it. I want to be non-attached. I still move forward and put my best foot forward. But I'm curious what the process is for you, from taking that from just an idea or a concept and actually feeling it like in your bones, actually having it being part of your being.
Yeah. So it's practice, it's exercise, just like any other muscle, something that we have to do consistently in order to build that. I read a book and it talked about subconscious reprogramming. It's actually by a friend of mine. His name is John Haskins. And the title of the book is, I Can't Believe It's This Easy. So quick plug for my buddy John. And he talked about how our conscious mind is in control of anywhere between 3 to, I think, 15% of our daily actions and the things that we do. Well, then if the other 85 to 97% of our body, our subconscious mind, is in control of our habits, our paradigms, and what we do on a daily basis and what we think, then that means if we tell ourselves to do something consciously, the chances of us actually doing that are very slim. If 97% or 80% or 85%, whatever the exact number is, of our actions are controlled by another vehicle, right? And so the way we start to implement these changes is to slowly, consciously start making those changes. And anytime we say need or have this feeling of attachment to something, we have to remind ourselves that that's the opportunity where we can reframe those beliefs, those ideas, those paradigms, those habits, that wisdom, right? And so what I just actively had to do was just do that repetitively.
Yeah.
And 2 times during the day where you can actually work on reprogramming your subconscious is when your body is in the theta state. Well, that is when you're about to go to sleep and right after you wake up. About to go to sleep, right after you wake up. So what I've been doing is journaling. And as I journal, I say things to myself and I write things down that I want to work on. And that could simply, for this example, could be, I am excited for the opportunity to have 700 people at the Riser event, right? Rather than saying, I need to have 700 people at the Riser event, or this is going to be a failure. You are giving yourself the chance to separate from that attachment to the outcome and write it down so that it then starts to program your subconscious mind. And then that's what you run on autopilot. So I guess to answer your question, it's taken time to do that.
Yeah.
And I think like anything, it's just like exercising a muscle. You have to practice, you have to practice, you have to practice. Yeah. And you have to be conscious of the fact that just consciously telling yourself that isn't enough. So it has to be something that you work on for months, maybe for years.
Yeah.
Are there quicker ways to do it? I don't know. I'm not the scientist when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't know the science. But for me personally, I know in the past 3 months of making an active effort to really reframe my mindset and implement some of these patterns, it significantly helped me and started to change just the way I look at life altogether. And honestly, just made me a lot happier. It really has. Made me a lot happier.
Man, what stands out, like the big thing I'm hearing is that the first step is always awareness, right? Awareness always precedes change.
Yes.
And oftentimes it's like one of the hardest pieces about us going through our own journey, right? In our own phase of development and growth is that we always become more aware, more and more and more and more aware. It keeps expanding of all of these areas that it feels like, we're getting in our own way. But going back to what we were saying earlier, it's always just the trailhead for the opportunity.
Yes.
But by understanding, wait a minute, hold up, 15% of this I'm controlling, there's something else. Okay. Becoming aware. Okay. So there's more to life. Like when I talk with guys, there's so much shame and guilt and judgment when I first speak with them because they're like, man, I know what to do, but I just don't do it, or like, I ate like crap this weekend, or I didn't follow through on my goal. And there's so much shame and guilt. And I think when you start to understand, hey, let's pause for a sec and really see what is controlling behavior, just that little bit of awareness can bring enough space between you and the event, for one.
Yes.
And then the more you recognize, okay, well, if that's happening, where are these thoughts coming from? Where are these narratives? Where are they even being created? They're being created and formed outside of my conscious awareness.
Yeah.
Okay, let's become aware of that. And that just creates a little bit of space between us and it. So there's, well, why am I getting so upset if it's not even something that I have control over? So the more we can bring awareness and attention to it, I think that lightness as well, like even you just laughing about it is kind of how I start. There's just crazy sometimes, some of the things that our mind tells us.
Yes.
And allows us, the room to take a deep breath and go, okay, something is happening behind the scenes. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? You got this person that's rooted in fear and is just full of perceived threats, and it's creating these narratives that, we go out and live like, holy shit, man, I need to hit 700. Yeah. Because like, if I don't, then we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're not going to be the number one networking thing in Austin. If we can't do it in Austin, then like, we're not going to be in business a year from now. So awareness around it. And then the daily practice is a way of really almost not fine tuning the awareness, but continue to expand it and see where these programs are really running unseen. And the more we can bring awareness to them, almost like the more it just softens the story as it is anyway.
Yep. Yeah. It is fascinating that many of the things that we do are it's our default settings. It's our conditioning. And we're on autopilot without even realizing. But once we do realize it and we have awareness, as you just said, and what I just wrote down, which I absolutely love, is awareness always precedes change. Precedes change, rather, excuse me. So beautiful, man. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, of course, man. I love that. And I mean, I love I think the big thing for me that I just want to, highlight really quick is it's not something that happens in one journal session. You don't sit down and say, you know what? I want to just be excited and I don't want to have this neediness energy.
Right.
Like it's something that is, part of our primal nature. It's hardwired into our species to really be a fear, survival, threat first, mentality or subconscious. And we as evolving beings, as beings that are awakening, have the opportunity to step in and take more control over it. Right. And I think that is like the real, kind of like the real path that you get on, because not being attached to something is not saying, I don't care if it happens or not. Right. It's not apathy is my point. You can still be in a place where you're busting your ass to create the best possible event that you've ever made before and still come from a place of not.
Right.
Not
and journaling is a practice, right? They call it a practice. And what is practice? Practice is getting actively better at something every time you do it. And that is what journaling is. You're not going to be the best journaler and be able to work through your problems and get all your ideas down and articulate the way you're feeling the best way and the right way the first time. You have to just continue. Not have to. You get the opportunity to continue to practice journaling and get better at it as time goes. And thus the change comes with it.
Yeah. Man, outside of journaling, what is part of your practice? What are some things that have been the most impactful for you, let's say in the last year or two?
Yeah.
That you make sure you do regularly?
Yeah, I think you can almost bring journaling with you in your day-to-day. And it's constant reframes of just a second ago, whenever I corrected myself from have to the opportunity to. Yeah. Being very careful and conscious of the words that I say out loud and that I speak, but also that I say to myself. Mm-hmm. I think it's important that we be kind to ourselves. We be more kind to ourselves. If we think we're already being kind, we'll be more kind in addition to that, because oftentimes we are hard on ourselves, and that leads to, again, pressure and unneeded stress. And I think a lot of the diseases and sicknesses that we have stem from stress. Yeah. So I think that's those two things, journaling and being conscious of the words that I say out loud and to myself, are very important. Third and fourth thing would be spending time with other positive people. If I found that when I spend time with people that are constantly negative or have something to complain about, it almost bleeds into your thought patterns and how you feel it. That energy really rubs off on you, and it can bleed into your own bubble of gratitude, I guess is a way to put it. And then the fourth thing is health in terms of physical health, right? And that could be exercise. It could be getting sun. Mm-hmm. It could be sleep, and it could be eating the correct way. And I say could be, but it's can and should and it's must. And if I'm going to say you need to do anything, those are the things you need to do, right? And so I'd say between those four things, the journaling, the being conscious of the words I say out loud and to myself, the people I spend time with, and watching and taking care of my health, those things have really helped my thus mental health. Yeah. And when we're healthy and we show up better for ourselves, then we can show up better for other people. The saying goes, better me, better everyone. And I'm a big believer of that. And when we have a glass that's full and overflowing, we can then pour into the other people that we love. So those are the things that I've focused on, the things that have had a good impact, not just good, but great, phenomenal, incredible, wonderful impact on my life over the course of the last 12 months.
And I love what you said about being very intentional with the language you use. And that's not something I think that people think of, right? They think of like this task list of like, meditate, I take this cold shower, or maybe I eat well, or journaling, of course.
Yeah.
But it's so true. And it reminds me of the idea that words are not descriptive. Most people think that the language they use is describing their reality, but language and the words we use are really creative. They're creating our experience on Earth. Like how we choose to describe whatever it is that we're going through, and thus describing our perspective and our viewpoint and what we want to make something mean, directly impacts how we experience whatever it is that we just described. We can choose to describe it in a way that is, fuck, I gotta get, oh my God, dude, I can't believe we have this thing coming up. We better hit 700. Or like, dude, what if we hit 700? I'm just saying. It could be a first time. Like, would that be cool? You know, just, it's the same thing.
Yes.
You know, it's choosing to see it from such a different light. Yes. What do you, with the people, and I don't know if you've had this much connection with a lot of, I mean, I know you're very sociable and it feels like you know everybody in Austin, but of the people like specifically that are like your, I'd say ideal clients, right? With Riser, what do you think is the biggest like mistake? I don't know if that's the right word, but the biggest mistake they're making when it comes to their overall well-being, their mental well-being, their emotional state, like as people that are trying to, you know, that are ambitious, that are trying to do big things, whether they're creators or starting their own business. What do you think is maybe a low-hanging fruit or one of the biggest mistakes they're making?
I say this because I know what this feels like, and it's a reminder for myself in this moment, but also for anybody who may be listening. You can be happy right now. People want to make $1 million. People want the big house, the yacht, the nice car, to travel to fancy places, to stay in the Ritz-Carlton, to go to Fiji, to go to Bora Bora, to travel through Europe, to get a new watch, new earrings. The question is why? And a lot of times the answer is, oh my gosh, because it's going to feel so good when I get it. I'm going to be so happy in that moment. I'm going to feel so accomplished. I'm going to feel so proud of myself, so loved, so seen and validated by the rest of the world. But ultimately, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel happy. The fallacy is that we can't feel that way right now. And the truth is we can. We can feel the same way in this moment as we would feel in that moment whenever we achieved said thing or got or bought said thing. And so I think the biggest mistake people make is that that's going to make them happy. And I know that this has been said, digested, and regurgitated in other ways by thousands, millions of people over the last 30,000 years. Gosh, I mean, right? You hear it over and over, right? You don't need these things to be happy. And it's the truth, man. We can wake up every day and be really, really grateful for where we are at in this moment. And that's just the reminder I'll give. If we're always chasing, if we're always seeking that next thing, which I don't think is bad, right? I think it's great to have goals and a North Star and something to focus on and work towards. That gives us purpose. But we can still be happy in this moment. And I think that's a practice that we should all work on daily to feel more gratitude at where we're at, who we're surrounding ourselves by, and the opportunity we get to wake up every day with a smile on our face and take a breath and get outside and get fresh air. We have everything we need right now to be happy. And that's the truth.
And I think that just ties a nice bow on we were sharing about language and choosing to use particular words and catching yourself when you say something that doesn't align with this best version of yourself and what you know you're capable of feeling. And I love you brought it back to feelings, right? Like, why do we do anything in life? It's to feel a certain way.
Yes.
It is. And when we can say, okay, well, what's that feeling? Whether it's I want to be happy, joy, listened to, heard, accepted, all of those things are subsets or sub feelings of the one main one, which is love.
Yes.
And so when you really start to see and think like, man, what people want more, like that's the light, and we're all moths and we're just drawn towards feeling love. And I think it was Jay Shetty that said, you know, at the same time, people often ask for love in the most unloving ways, but at our core, it's still what we're after. And so I love how you were, you know, saying like, hey man, we don't have to put that out into the future. And what I always think about and I bring up is like, man, what are you trading right now for happiness in the future? What are you giving up in your current state, your everyday life for the last few years you've been working towards for this made up outcome?
Yeah.
Right? That we just keep working towards. And the thing about goals that I love, because in this whole conversation around non-attachment, and what do you mean? Well, if I'm happy and content now, then this is always the first counter rebuttal I hear is like, okay. And this is out of like a great heart-centered place and guys that are really curious. And they're like, okay, well, if I work to be at peace and present and content now, like, do I just not give a shit about my career and like providing for my family? And it's like, you got to remember is the nature of life on earth is growth. We always move towards the light. Like, and if we're coming from a place that is our natural state, which is more aligned with love, creativity, joy, confidence, calm.
Yes.
Dude, you can't help it, but you're going to start creating and you're going to have things that go. And like, this shifted me. A buddy told me this. He was a men's coach a while back and he's doing something else now, but he's like, the purpose of goals isn't to achieve them. The whole purpose of goals is to learn, to make sure that this is the right thing you're going after, to gain clarity, and then to grow and evolve as a human being.
Yes.
That's it. So if you have a goal that you're not aligned with because you don't feel like you're getting the right kind of growth that your soul needs, that's amazing. Let's just change what you're working towards.
Yes. Yeah, those goals and those North Stars are important because it's not the achievement of that thing that is important. It is, who does it require you to become in order to achieve that thing?
Yeah.
And that's when you start to embody this more advanced, more loving, more driven version of yourself that will allow you to get said thing that you hope to achieve. And that is the exciting part. It's who does it require you to become and who does it turn you into in the process of the journey of going after that goal.
Yeah. And the irony is at that point, you don't even need it. Right?
Yes.
So great. Dude, let's do a couple fun. I got some fun questions real quick.
Cool.
We'll go shorter answers with these. Beautiful. Who have been your biggest, or who maybe are your biggest mentors or influences or teachers?
4 people that come to mind off the bat. My dad, my grandpa, who I didn't grow up with, but the stories of him through my dad always had an impact on me. A gentleman by the name of Roger Joseph, who I met in college, helped me work my way through college, giving me opportunities and different jobs in Austin to pay for school myself. Yeah. And then a gentleman by the name of Rick Anderson, who was the most giving man that I ever knew, and would literally take his shirt off take his shirt off his back and give it to someone who needed it. And that was just who he was and taught me a lot about the importance of giving. Wow,
amazing. What is the best compliment that you've received?
Dude, somebody asked me this the other day and I laughed about it. I'm embarrassed to say it. I don't know why, dude, but I love when girls compliment my nose.
Yeah.
Something about it, man.
Great.
Whenever they're like, you have a cute nose, I'm always flattered. That's me being candid.
That's great. That's not a common compliment. For a lot of people, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 2 more for you. Olympics are going on right now. If you could gold medal in any Olympic event, any Olympic sport, what would it be?
I think the 100-meter dash is the one that comes to mind first, but I swam growing up. So being able to get a gold in the individual medley, which is the IM, would be awesome for me, just because that would have been a dream of mine as a kid.
Yeah, that's amazing. And last one. So I'm a huge reader. What has been your top book in the last year?
In the last year?
If you're a reader, I guess I should ask that first.
Man, when I turned 18, I made it a goal of mine to read one book a week for years. And I did that to the point where I actually got burnt out. And I've taken the last year. Well, I'm kind of reading a book by Rick Rubin right now, which is phenomenal.
Creative Act.
The Creative Act. Yeah. I'm halfway through it. So I am actively reading, but not as much. I think initially whenever this question has been asked me in the past, I've always gone to self-help books. Yeah. But for the purpose of switching things up just a little bit, I'm going to leave the audience with another book, which I think is one of the most sold books ever on Amazon. It's called Beneath the Scarlet Sky. And it's based on a true story during, I believe it was World War I. And it just has so much in it. It's got adventure, it's got action, it's got romance, and every other genre of book that's ever been written is all just put together in this melting pot of what Beneath the Scarlet Sky is. And it's incredible, man. No book has ever made me cry, but that book has made me cry and bawl my eyes out. And anytime I've given it to somebody, they've had the same reaction, but they just love it. You just get so drawn in and sucked in. It's incredible.
Man, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I haven't read that. Matt, dude, I appreciate it so much, man. It's great to connect. It's been too long. And yeah, hopefully I gotta make it out to a Riser event too. But tell me where people can find you. What are ways that you can help? Let us know.
First off, Tim, thank you for having me, man. It's been an absolute treat and pleasure. I've been on, I think now maybe 2 or 3 dozen podcasts, and you have a very special ability to lead the conversation to a place where the guest, myself, feels very, very comfortable, but also to get answers that help your audience that potentially they can relate to based off of their own personal experiences. So thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
You can find me, and you can find Riser at Riser Network on Instagram. And my personal is at Matt_Worthington, WORTHINGTON.
Hell yeah. Awesome, brother. Till next time.
Till next time.
See you, dude.
See you, man. Thank you.